You are listening to the Bitter Medicine Podcast on KWAZ Radio. Welcome to the Bitter Medicine Podcast, where it's all about Black empowerment. Our show focuses on Black news and entertainment, arts, science, economics, history, people, and strategies that uplift, empower, and motivate Africans within the diaspora. And now, your host, whose favorite color is black, Goku.
And we're back. We're discussing this recent New York Times article on race and economic opportunity in the United States. They had 7 findings from this research that they did, and we're now on finding number 3. I'm having a discussion with Onita Asay from the Pro-Black Perspective podcast. Make sure to tune in to his podcast. He has a new episode that drops every Saturday. Make sure to tune in. Only finding number 3 says that differences in family characteristics, parental marriage rates, education, wealth, and differences in ability explain very little of the black-white gap. So, to me, that second part that says differences in ability, right? I think that goes back to the whole IQ thing again, right? And
exactly.
Right. So
exactly.
So, what jumped out at you at finding number 3?
Well, that's what I'm saying. For finding number 3, I was saying, that's kind of, a slap in the face to the quote-unquote Marxist, communist, socialist, so on and so forth. The people who say, hey, everything is class and not race. Mm-hmm. Like the idea here is that, class didn't really dictate much.
Right.
Race dictated pretty much everything.
Right.
And that right there is, what, it's kind of like where and what, we need to focus on. But I also feel like because like I said, I feel like I already said what needs to be said about Marxism,
Yeah.
But the idea here, again, like I said earlier, it's people are wasting, like the socialist, Marxist kind of stuff is just wasting your time, It's wasting your time in the sense of saying that, all the problems are class because, again, class is how they stratify their society,
Yes.
But that's like internal to their nation. But we have to start looking at ourselves as an external nation, if you will, and then realize that they have a foreign policy. You know what I'm saying? And their foreign policy is what we call, quote unquote, racism.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So to say that how they look at us is like racially, kind of like how so to say that, yeah, they might have sort of a class structure, if you will.
Yeah.
They might have a class structure, but that doesn't matter in the foreign policy. In the quote unquote foreign policy.
Right.
It's domestic policy, but for another nation of people, for people that they're trying to subjugate.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So there's an active racial subjugation that they are trying to do. And that's why we can't get caught up in this whole Marxism stuff, because Marxism might be well and good for white folk, maybe. I don't know. I don't think so, but, let's just say it is, right?
Yeah.
But it has nothing to do with us.
Nope.
Because those classes don't translate the same. No. Like I said, you have 90%. Like they were showing you with the breakdown, 35% of the lower 1% are black people, right? And bear in mind, we're like, 14% of the population here or something, or 12% of the population here. Yeah. And that's another thing to remember, too, that we've always been 12% of the population.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? We've been 12% of the population for the last 100 years or something like that, you know? But, you know, because it's controlled, because they control how many people come in. That's why they're, oh no, these Latinos are here. Oh no, these Latinos are here. But they're controlling it so that they come in a certain amount of numbers to keep us at 12%. You know what I'm saying? But
before you go on, concerning that 12% number, do you think that's really true?
That we're 12%?
Yeah.
I mean, that's all they ever report. I don't. What do you mean?
Well, I mean, we're at war, right? And propaganda is a part of the war. So pushing the idea that we're this super minority, we're only 12% versus the 88.
Well, I'm saying it's not even versus the 88 anymore, because they're now like, let's say 50-something%,
right? 56.
And the other percent is exactly, and the other percent are these Latinos. So that, you know, so the Latinos are now like 14, 50% or something. I don't know, but the whole idea is that like you said, like why are we consistently 12%?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And as a part of it is that they're allowing these other people in to make it so, because they can't, because we're outbreeding them.
Right.
Right. So and again, that's exactly what they did in Latin America. They were like, hey, these black people are out. You know, they have a higher population than us, or the population growth is higher than us. So we need to import white people in, and that's the same reason why you don't see too many African, because you know, like a lot of people talk about how they control the immigration rate for like these African countries.
Yeah.
You know, so as to say that, you know, it's kind of like what you know, the current, you know, president of America would say, which is, you know, he wants more people from
Norway,
like Sweden, Norway or Sweden or whatever, right? You know, from these white countries, you know, instead of these black countries, and that's what they've always been doing. Some people would say that was like I think that was the first law that America passed, was the immigration law,
yes,
which like limited the population of black people, you know, people from Africa coming in,
yes,
but like allowed for like, you know, pretty much free passage from people,
the Philippines,
you know, from in Europe and all that stuff, you know. So it's like, so I mean, as far as the 12%, like again, you know, we are in a position where we're relying on them for information.
Yes.
So we're not doing the census.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? You know, even though Du Bois was a coon, I heard that he did one of the earliest census on black people, or at least from a black person's perspective, right, or a blackish person's perspective. But the whole thing is that, you know, we're not doing that. So we don't know what the census is. Right. You know, I would think though that white people want to limit the number of black people, and if they see black people being, you know, outperformed, like we just pointed out, you know, they will bring in the buffer. They will bring in the white folk to outnumber, because again, you know, the quote unquote WASP, you know, white Anglo-Saxon Protestant, he didn't want the Irish among his ranks. He didn't want the Italian among his ranks, but he brought them in order to bolster up the white numbers, and so he's doing that now with these Latinos. You know what I'm saying? So that the black population continues to be, you know, that low percent. I don't think it's higher. I would actually think it might be lower. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you know, because, you know, he's not going to tell you he's killing you off. You know what I'm saying? Because it could be 6%. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. It could be 6%. It could be 1%. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? You don't know. Because there are a lot of places in America that are just white.
It's just pure,
you know what I'm saying?
Utah.
Yeah, just you can't even find a black person. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
They say a lot of white people have never even seen a black person in real life. You know what I'm saying?
Interesting.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So this finding number 3 kind of bucks against some previous hypotheses that these white folks try to put on us. That black children are more likely to grow up in single-parent households with less wealth and parents with lower levels of education. And also that, you know, people have proposed that there's a racial disparity in intelligence or innate ability. But as we've, you know, just previously discussed, the black woman is doing well as far as education goes. You know, she's out competing everyone. So how is it intelligence? Are you now going to say that black males, are low IQ and not black females? It kind of knocks that whole talking point that the Jared Taylors and stuff have had, right? About this intelligence thing. So essentially, what it does, it just flat out says it's about your race. It's not about anything else. It's about your race. But that's no surprise to us. We, those of us who know, we already knew this.
Exactly.
So I might.
And the only difference is that white people getting paid, thousands and thousands of dollars to do something that, to say something that we already know. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's the crazy part.
You know what I'm saying? That's the part of it.
These guys not only got paid, but they got funded to carry out this research that most black folks knew that shit already.
Exactly.
We know already, as you mentioned earlier in this broadcast, if you put a black person against a white person in a fair environment, we're going to beat them 9 times out of 10.
Exactly. 9 times out of 10.
9 times out of 10. This is why they put so many obstacles in our path. And then pretend like there's no obstacles.
Exactly.
As a matter of fact, I saw something recently, and I had this conversation with a white girl one time at work. She said, I keep hearing people talk about white privilege, but I grew up poor and struggled and this, that, and I had to tell her, like, white privilege doesn't mean you are rich.
Exactly.
All it means is that you didn't have to go through the same hurdles that, say, I have to go through. And it means that when I walk into a room and there's you and another white person in the room, you guys have the ability to fundamentally exclude me from any positions of power, essentially. Right? You guys are organized that way where you can buddy up, so to speak, and exclude me from anything positive. That's what white privilege is. And a lot of people don't understand. I hear some Negroes out here talking about there's white people who feel it too. What are you talking about?
Exactly. Exactly. They don't understand, but it's like, it's like there you go. If you explain it, like a white woman white women are just not smart. I mean, so it's like, it's like you can't explain, she's like, I wasn't born rich. I mean, everybody knows that there are people who are not, like, everybody knows not all white people are rich. Everybody know that,
Yeah.
Like, why would you even say that? You know what I'm saying? Like, everybody knows that not all white people are rich.
Well, they say that.
Nothing about it.
They say that because there's a lot of dumb black folks who will be like, oh, yeah, that's true,
Yeah, exactly. Because again, like that's the whole socialist, Marxist kind of crap talk that we have to avoid, because it's letting you think that, like I said, if you're a white person, that's what it is,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's move on to finding number. Where are we now? Finding number 4.
Yeah.
Go ahead and read that one off.
All right. So, in 99% of neighborhoods in the United States, black boys earn less in adulthood than white boys who grow up in families with comparable income. Yeah.
I mean, again, these guys were funded and paid to tell us this, right?
You know what I'm saying? They're making bank over that, man.
Yeah. I mean, come on.
They got the New York Times front page.
Yeah.
New York Times front page for telling you something pretty obvious. Yeah,
it's but it made me think about I actually started reading your book, Zuberi and the Maroons of Maa, and
yeah.
I like the fact that it's a love story, and I haven't finished it yet. I know it's a short book, but I like to take my time and visualize when I read and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And First of all, I'd like to just say, for those who haven't read it yet, go out and get the book. I like the ease in which the man and the woman kind of got together. Right?
Yes.
It to me, it showed that she had a fundamental understanding of what he represented as a black man and what black men kind of go through, and you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
And so when I was reading this finding, I kind of oddly thought about your book and those characters, because in this finding, again, I have a message for black women that, and this is something I've been saying since my early 20s, like, you as a black woman, because I used to see this a lot in the 90s, you can't compare your black men to white men.
Exactly.
You can't look at a white dude and say he has this and that going on, and then look at a black dude who's taking the bus and you want to shit on him. You know, because fundamentally, we earn less. Right?
Uh-huh.
We earn less, and that's how they have the system constructed for us to earn less.
Exactly.
It's not about our ability. It's not about our intelligence. They have it set up that way where we just, because we're black, and this goes back to the article I read at the top of the show where this black man is talking about how he hates being black or some shit like that. You know, he's talking about he's 6 foot tall and big, broad nose and black skin and this, that, and the other. We have to understand that that's all you need to have going on for you, for these white folks to subjugate you. That's it.
Exactly. You know, they choked out that brother, you know, for nothing, you know?
For nothing. I haven't even seen the cigarettes. They talk about he was selling cigarettes illegally.
Exactly.
Where were the cigarettes in the video?
Exactly. And then they choked him out and killed him because of that. You know, and you know, that's because he was a big guy.
Yeah.
You know? And you know, like his daughter recently passed, you know.
Yeah, that was sad.
But that's how bad it is. But that's what it is, you know, like you said, you know, and that's you know, because strangely enough, that's the same finding reminded me of Zuberi too, because you know, essentially it's not, and you know, kind of this finding is kind of like, you know, hey, the ghetto. You know, one thing I want to say was that the ghetto is like a project, you know, and you know it's a project because they tell you it's a project. You know, they tell you it's a project. You know what I'm saying? You know, but it's an experiment. You know, but like Zuberi represents, like in the book of Zuberi, like what I was reminded of is just the difference between nationalism and integration.
Right.
You know,
right?
Because in integration, you know, I don't know if I'm going to talk about integration. Let me see if I wrote it down. No, I didn't write it down. So the thing that I wanted to say was that during even Garvey's time, okay, I can't remember exactly, but I think she was the chairman of the NAACP, right? Which seems a little incongruous because I don't remember a woman being the chairman of the NAACP, but like, let's say if she were, you know, this Mary, whatever her name is, right? What she said privately to somebody when they were trying to pass the Dreyer bill, which is, what I understand is like, it was the anti-lynching bill, you know, and it was supposed to like punish, you know, people for lynching black people, because the NAACP at the time was going against, you know, lynchings of black people, you know, and the whole thing was that what she says privately is that she's not going to punish white people for lynching black people. Like even though she was head of the NAACP, and the NAACP was pushing this, you know, anti-lynching bill, she's privately saying that she's not really supporting it, you know, because she doesn't think that white people should be punished for lynching black people. But that's kind of like goes back into this whole thing of, you know, why is it that 99% of neighborhoods, you know, white people are comparing better than black people? It's because if white people have the power, right, they are not going to put your sons above their sons.
Never.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, never.
And really, let's be frank, they shouldn't. They're practicing nationalism. They shouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
You get what I'm saying?
Yep.
But if we're practicing integration while they're practicing nationalism, the trouble is that they're never going to put our children above theirs.
Yep.
Eddie, who was it? Chris Rock tells a joke about, how he's in the audience and he's like, even though I'm rich, who would want to be me? And no white person raises their hand.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, even though he's like the top comedian, and one of his neighbors is like Jay-Z or something, and the other neighbor is like
Mary J. Blige.
Oprah or something, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Mary J. Blige, yeah, Mary J. Blige is like an amazing singer. Their white neighbors are like the dentist down the street.
Yeah, Phil, the dentist.
It's like Phil the dentist. You know what I'm saying? Like Mary J. Blige is like, a name. You know what I mean? Like, Jay-Z or whatever. I don't care if Jay-Z or whatever, but he's a name.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But it's Phil the dentist.
Yeah, not the greatest dentist alive.
No, not the greatest dentist alive. He's Phil the dentist. Like,
just Phil the dentist. Yeah.
He probably does my teeth. You know what I'm saying? I'm joking. But I'm just saying though, it's like he ain't nobody special. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't let no white boy get in my mouth.
Right.
But anyway. But I don't want y'all to stay here like, oh, you got a white dentist. Nah, I got no white dentist. Anyway, but look, but that's what I'm saying though. It's like, but that's why Zuberi is so important, because Zuberi, shows an example of nationalism, shows an example of what it would look like if black people, had their own economy going on, had their own, were practicing their own, community. You don't see the same situation. You get what I'm saying? And this is also like Pan-African nationalism, so it kind of talks to what the solution for our race is.
Yeah.
Like you said, even though it looks like a love story, it is a love story in the context of free people.
Yes.
You get what I'm saying? And that's why, the women don't play games, the men don't play games.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
That's why they just fluid.
Yes.
Because they're being their African selves.
Yeah.
That's something that you don't get in integration. Because like you said, in integration, what you have is this, you have a lot of men are like that black guy you came in the beginning.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
The black guy in the beginning is not going to be attractive to a black woman because he's not even attracted to himself.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? He's talking about he's 6. Now you said he's 6 feet, broad shoulders, thick lips, broad nose. That's supposed to be an attractive dude.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
You get what I'm saying? Like if he does himself properly, he's walking around broad shoulders, he's tall, he's walking around, he's strong. He's supposed to be an attractive dude, but he comes off like an ugly dude.
Yes.
Or he looks at himself like he's an ugly dude.
Yes.
He even says, "Why would I want to look like this?"
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And then, of course, the woman that he meets is going to have the same kind of mentality. She's like, oh, my butt's too big. My breasts are too large. Like, this is good things. You know what I'm saying?
Good stuff.
What's she complain about? She complain about what? You know what I'm saying? But she's like, oh, I'm a hot mess. You know what I'm saying? No, you looking good. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But that's the thing that, that's the thing that's going on, though. It's like, Whereas again, like if you practice in nationalism, you celebrate, and like I said, you look at Carlos Cooks, he's from 50 years ago. You celebrating the physical features of black people. You know what I mean? You saying, oh man, look at her when she turns around. You know what I'm saying? Or you saying, oh, them thick lips, that broad nose, oh man, these features, that dark sable skin, oh man, I can't wait to, get with her.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Whereas on the other hand, you got this integration where you're like, hey, I want me a Red Bull or something.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I want some, I want her to have I wish I had manageable hair. Oh, look at this sister, man. Look at this straight hair she got. You know what I'm saying? All that kind of mess. But that's part and parcel with, like I said, the ideology of a people. And so that's why I wrote Zuberi. That was the first book I wrote, because I was like, well, that's the first book I published, because I was like, that right there is the message that, needs to be had. This idea of what would it be like for us if we were free. We wouldn't have the same, because the dude, like again, the dude in the beginning that you read about, he wasn't all that.
No.
And if sisters are passing up that, it makes a lot of sense.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Or just like, there are the sisters, there are a lot of self-hatred. If the brothers are passing up that, it makes a lot of sense. But we have to fix our ideology. Once we fix our ideology, you'll see this same brother, be smooth. He's like, yo, my thick lips, my 6 foot tall. I'm good.
Yep.
I stand here and I can protect the sister. Sister feels safe around me. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Back in the day, even white folks used to talk about tall, dark, and handsome. Like it was, that was the thing of choice.
Exactly.
So when this brother talks about,
being tall, dark, and handsome, you know what I'm saying?
Right. And he hates being tall, dark, and handsome. That's essentially what he's saying.
Exactly. That don't make no sense, man. I'll tell you, your whole ideology gets warped,
And that thinking comes from the black stereotype that they give to you, right? So I think it was in this same finding, it kind of relates that, black men are stereotyped as scary, intimidating, and violent and all that stuff. And so they deal with obstacles a little bit more unique to them than to black women, the prison to school pipeline and stuff like that. It's for black men specifically. But, the black male stereotype that brother who I read about at the beginning, that leads to the economic disadvantages. He is telling you why he's economically disadvantaged by speaking on their behalf, so to speak, right?
Exactly.
He's telling you that I'm woeful and stuff because I'm tall and dark skinned, but a broad nose and big lips or whatever, right?
Mm.
But he doesn't realize that that's exactly what they use against you to keep you down economically. And the finding says something interesting where this is concerned, the black male stereotype is concerned. They said, basically, you can't, like, the way the world has changed now, there's very little service jobs anymore, right?
Exactly.
No,
there's more service jobs.
Yeah, there's more service jobs now, right?
Less manufacturing. Right.
There's less manufacturing jobs. So, like, back in the day, you could have taken your tall, dark, big, broad nose, big lip self in the back somewhere and work. But now, with more service jobs, they don't want to see you.
Exactly.
So, so more than hating your features, you should want to love creating a counter to that, where you're working in service to your own people who will appreciate those features that you have.
Exactly. See, because the white boy don't ever say, "Oh, I don't like being tall."
Pink,
or the white boy. You know what I'm saying? Like, white people say that being tall, for instance, is a benefit to them.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like they break down that, tall people, you know what I mean? Like they break down how tall, like how height is a good thing.
Yep.
When you're white. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But here you have this brother talking about, oh, I wish I were a little bit less intimidating. Like white people will terrorize the whole planet and not ever say that they feel like they're intimidated.
No.
You know what I'm saying? Terrorize the whole planet, enslave populations. They kill populations.
Yeah.
But then you ain't never heard no white person say, oh, I feel like I'm intimidated.
No, never.
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 You know what I'm saying? He there, what is his name? He there purposely poisoning people in doctor's offices.
Mm-hmm.
But if you say I'm not going to the doctor, because they're like, why would you? That's so stupid.
Mm-hmm.
Why would you not trust a doctor? Well, I mean, because y'all keep killing us.
Y'all
and
killing
like,
people.
what? You know what I'm saying? Like, you keep doing stupid stuff. Like, why would I? So it's like, but that's what I'm saying. It's like, that's the mentality that they want. It's the weakest. Like, if white people want that, they want black people to talk as stupid as the first guy. But the thing is that first stupid guy is not attractive to black women.
Right.
I mean, he's not attracted to any. He's attracted to possibly white women because he seems to value white features.
Right.
You get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And he seems to be like again, he seems to be like the kind of person that white men expect black women to be, which is like, you know, he's not going to say no. You know, he's not going to value himself.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
You know, she's going to be like, hey, you know, I'd like if you were, if you and your, you know, like another guy, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, you know, I don't want to go, you know.
Why don't you bring Jamal over? For what?
Exactly. Why don't you bring Jamal, you know, or even like, you know, your relative or something. You know what I'm saying? Like something really degrading.
Yeah.
And he'd be like, oh, well, yeah, sure, I guess not. Why not? You know, we ain't anyway. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I'm saying? It's all nonsense. So it's like, you know, I'm not even, you know, and then plus, you know, like these brothers, you know, and the thing with brothers and white women is that, you know, they go after the white man's refuse. You know, the white man's, like they go after the worst white women.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? The white women that, like, because white women ain't good to begin with, but you know, some of them are better than others. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They go after the white women. You gotta like roll. You know what I'm saying? Like you gotta roll down the street when you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you have to buy a forklift to take out on a date.
You know what I'm saying? You gotta get a forklift on a date. You know what I'm saying? Like I know it don't make no sense, man. You know, but that's what I'm saying. Like when you really don't like, because the thing is that you're like, oh, this is just a guy. You know, it could be a bad sister. It could be, you know, like name a bad sister, Amara. You know, or even Lupita.
Yeah.
You know, you'd be like, look, Lupita got thick lips and you know, I don't know anybody would say yuck to Lupita, but like, you know, you say, Lupita got thick lips and broad nose. Okay, but then they're gonna go to some, you know, pointy nose, you know,
elf,
you know, Pillsbury Doughboy, you know,
elf-looking doughboy,
yeah, Pillsbury Doughboy, you know, and then they're like, yo, that's the best one. Like, nah, bro. You said you rejected Lupita Black? Nah, I'm sorry, man.
When I was in college, I can't tell you how many black dudes I've seen bring around these white women and treat them like these queens, and you're looking at them. And you're saying to yourself, if that was a black woman with that body type, you'd be like, ooh, yuck. Right?
Yeah.
But because it's a white chick, you're all in love. You know, it's just
the saddest thing, man. It's the saddest thing. I've seen these brothers with these, and you're just like, and these brothers are not even like, you know, they're not as hideous as these white women.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like no homo. You know, I'm just saying they not. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they're not a hot mess.
Right.
But they be going for like the messiest. Like they go for the white women that white men don't touch.
Absolutely.
And again, like you go to the white man, how they do it though, they don't go for like the black women that we ain't touching.
Nope.
You know what I mean? They go for, you know, the top. They go for the, you know what I'm saying? They go for the Lupitas and so forth. You know what I'm saying?
They go for the prize. I always say, when you see another race deal with a black woman, it's usually like a prize black chick.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But when you see us go with a
Yeah.
white woman, it's like the reject. You know, back in the day when they used to sell underwear, like T-shirt, they used to put on the packaging irregular. They go for the irregular white woman, you know, the one that fits poorly. Yeah.
I'm saying though, man, it's weird. I see it and I'm just like, what's like why? You know, but I mean, that's what I said again. You know, white people want that sexual access to black women. You know what I'm saying? Like a white man, because the thing is this, like, I heard that if you go to, let's say, a certain neighborhood in Brownsville, there's like a bridge or something, that you could buy a prostitute, if you will. You know what I'm saying? And the thing is that if you go there at night or whatever, you're going to see these Jew men, you know, or like a bunch of white men, but also like, you know, like Gentile white, you know, like Christian whites, but also Jewish whites, whatever. But you're going to see them soliciting these black women for sex, even though these are like family men, quote unquote,
right, in
their communities. You know, they leave it, they stepping out of their houses to go and get some black women. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so that right there is like, that's just weird. Like people want, like you want to mess with a Lupita, but how do you get a Lupita is the question.
Right. Right.
You know what I'm saying? How did you get a Lupita if you're a terrible ass white man? Well, it's because the way how you would do it is you would socially organize the situation where you put the black man down.
Yes.
Get him out of the way, and you say, "Hey, black woman, you all right?" Or you get black men to say, "Dark skin is not good." Because a lot of, like you said, like a lot of sisters would be like, "Hey, people used to say I was dark, but they would say, oh, I'm dark and I'm not attractive as a dark woman, and it made me feel so bad as a kid." And you're looking at them, and you're like, "What's this badass? Like she's looking good."
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But she's there whining about people calling her ugly. And the thing is that white boys doesn't call her ugly.
Never.
You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And again, it's all psychological. You know, they got black folks saying, "Oh yeah, you ugly," and all that stuff. Meanwhile, she's fired. But because I think even Lupita said that she was bullied for being dark. You know what I'm saying?
Which is crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, I'm not to say that she was like, that she. Maybe she. I mean, I don't know, but like. I don't know what she was like when she was younger, but my impression would be that she was pretty good looking. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, she.
You know what I'm saying?
I doubt she looked like Precious when she was
exactly.
younger.
You know, I doubt she wasn't. All that. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Although I might be a little controversial and be like, I didn't think Precious was that bad. You know what I'm saying? I mean, maybe in the Precious, maybe in the movie. I didn't watch the movie, but. The actress isn't that bad. You know what I'm saying? I told somebody that he was a little tight with me for that.
Yeah, I may have to talk to you after the broadcast about
I was saying, like, I'm saying the actress. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I mean, I know but she coons a lot, so I don't really, so that like takes the points off of her.
Yeah.
But like, but I mean, she wasn't like, Like obviously I'd take her over a white woman, obviously. You know what I'm saying? Like, obviously. Like, that's what I'm saying, you know what I'm saying? I mean, I'm not going to take her over, Lupita or something, but, you know what I'm saying? But, like, obviously, it's just like, okay, that's the only thing I got? Okay.
Oh,
you know what I'm saying?
Come here, Becky. Come forward.
No, I'm not taking no Becky, man. Get out of here, man.
No, I'm just kidding. So, where were we now? We were on finding number 5.
Yeah.
It says that both black and white boys have better outcomes. And you and I talked about this earlier, before recording. It says both black and white boys have better outcomes in low poverty areas, but black-white gaps are bigger in such neighborhoods. Now, you pointed this out, so I'll let you speak on it. But isn't this finding number 5 written absolutely ridiculously?
Yeah, exactly. Just this whole. I mean, they said low poverty, but they should just say high wealth. And a little bit more clear that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, low poverty areas. Yeah. So it just says black and white boys have better outcomes when they, have wealth. In wealthy areas, but black gaps are bigger in such neighborhoods. So it's just that, it's just, but like for me, it's just sad. It's white nationalism. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, everybody, but that's the thing. Like, okay, black, people do better when they have more, have a higher income, in a richer area. And then, I mean, that's not, like I said, like you said, why, that's the thing with white people. It's like they got so much money that they can pay for people to state the obvious.
Yeah.
You do better when you have a bigger income. I mean, you're in a richer area. Like, who didn't know that?
Right.
Who in America didn't know that if you're like who in the world didn't know that if you were from a wealthier area, you would do better? I
mean, come on, man.
Like, who didn't know that? I don't understand. Like, who are they trying to point that out to? You know what I'm saying?
It's just madness.
I would, if you had any integrity and you were doing this research, you would just give a refund to whomever. You just be like, here you go.
You know what?
You're like, I just found out, Eureka, I found it. Like what? Anyway, I mean, the other part, which is about, the black-white, white nationalism, if you will. This white people are practicing nationalism, so they are going to make themselves better Because the thing with nationalism we have to understand is that nationalism is how you empower your people. You know, it's self-empower. It's empowering your people. So the thing is that they are not supposed to be empowering you. You get what I'm saying? Right. So anything. So if you happen to come from a well-to-do family, right, and you manage to remain in a well-to-do family, then you know that's coincidental. You know that you know you did something right, I guess, or whatever, or you did something somehow. You know the cards were in your favor. You know something happened, whatever, right? But that's not what they're designed to do. You know they're designed to, as we all know, the rich get richer and the poor get poorer.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? And that's what they say about themselves, that the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. So what they're saying is that white people are continually getting richer and black people are staying the same or even regressing. Because if you look at the breakdown or the diagram that they have, you know, the wealthy become poor.
Yes.
You get what I'm saying?
Yes.
Like you see the diagram. It's not a linear.
Yes.
You know. You know. Oh, the wealthy remain wealthy. You know. No. The wealthy of the whites become wealthier.
Yes.
And the wealthy of the blacks just go
downward.
Yeah, exactly. They'll go downward more or less. Yeah. You get what I'm saying? Like they showed that like through an equal distribution. You know, like let's say if you start off with 20%, you know, rich black folk, you know, it becomes 5%.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
You know, and whereas white people become like 40%. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like that's what we have to bear in mind that they're practicing a nationalism, and what we need to do is we need to practice nationalism too, yes. Because integration is what you'll see, and the integration result is you're going to keep going backwards.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like trying to be included on a totem pole, and they're going to put you on the bottom of the totem pole.
Always, because why should they do? Because it's like what Freddy Devil said. You know, if all you do is living in the house, right? You're not that valuable to them.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? You're not that valuable to them if all you're doing is living in the house. If you're building the house, it's different.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? If you're building the house, then it's different. But you're not. You know what I mean? If you're not making the toilet paper, if you're not, you know, because like a lot of what you call rich white people are like from families that have industries. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Or have something. You know, remember back in the day, you know, we used to talk about, what was it, Paris Hilton. You know, she was the heiress to the Hilton, you know, fortune or whatever. The Hilton fortune, or the Hiltons were, like, I guess, a hotel brand or a hotel branch or something like that. You know what I mean? But they provided some sort of service. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Now you go to, you know, what you would consider a rich, like well, maybe not that rich, but like a rich black family, if you will, right? Or a comparably rich black family, if there is one. But you're like, well, what's the chain that we have?
Mm-hmm.
You get what I'm saying? What's the chain? You know, and there are some chains, but obviously, you know, probably not as big as that one. But there are some. But that's the whole point. It's like if you're talking about nationalism, you have to talk about, well, you need to have your own, you know, hotel chain, you know, your own hotel heiress or whatever, or you need to have your own, you know, burger chain or whatever, you know, and that's what kind of like what you saw at Black Wall Street, you know, where black people had their own airplanes, they had their own hotels, they had their own banks, they had their own, you know, multiple banks, multiple hotels, multiple, you know, so on and so forth. And of course, like the difference between them and Zuberi and with Maa is that they didn't defend it well enough, you know.
Yep.
But the whole idea is that, you know, that's the kind of nationalism that you need to practice.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because and that's the difference. But of course, like I said, you know, you go back to Zuberi to understand that you have to defend it too. You know, because that nationalism is not just economics.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Nationalism is, politics, economics, culture, ethics. It's a holistic philosophy. And that's something that we have to, understand as well.
You know what's kind of crazy about this study that the New York Times just published this week? About 2 years ago, 2016, they had an article from CBS News that spoke about how long it would take black families to catch up with white wealth. I don't know if you're familiar with that story they came up with, but they estimated that it would take like 228 years for blacks to catch up to current white wealth.
Exactly.
And so do y'all still think integrating is helpful to you? As Oni has said, these guys are organizing. They're organizing for their offspring, for their generations to come to be on top. You think they're going to integrate you and give you the opportunity to outclass them?
Never. Yeah, never. They prefer, what's his name? That idiot, Paris Hilton to have that wealth than they do for you.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? And of course they will, because that's their daughter.
Yeah.
We don't realize, but they operate on a family first kind of basis.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Race first, but it's really like family first, if you will.
Yeah.
And because they operate that way, that's what they push. And that's how it is. But we on the other hand, we're flipping. We're not even doing what it needs to be done to say, hey, look, we can be independent. Because on the dependence track, they're saying, okay, in 200-something years, they're going to catch up with what we had 200 years ago.
Oh, my God.
But what are they going to have then, And like I said, you got to go back to what your ancestors said. One of my ancestors, Jonathan Bruce, said, while we're basically while we're playing around, they're building weapons.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? They're fortifying their cities to fight against us, and while we're not doing that at all, might as well face facts as well as fancies. But the whole idea is that they're going to be like the weapons that they're going to have in 200 years. You get what I'm saying? Like, you can't even fathom it. But what I'm saying is, weapons they're going to have in 200 years. And if we are in the same predicament that we are today, then we have a problem.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Because like I like to point out, we couldn't take on, our ancestors. The ones that were colonized. We couldn't take them on militarily.
Mm-hmm.
Today. You get what I'm saying?
Wow.
Whereas white folk back then could have taken on, like, we couldn't take on their ancestors.
Right.
You understand?
Damn.
And that's the problem. The power gap, like not just the wealth gap, but the power gap is increasing too, and we're not even discussing that. I mean, not like you and I, but I'm just saying, in general, we as a people, we're not even addressing, this power gap, this military gap that's increasing, because with that wealth, you're going to see, because like white people got enough money to waste on this kind of stupid study. They got enough money to waste on, on more deadly weapons. Of course.
Yeah.
And I do want to just say one thing about those deadly weapons, that one time I was watching like the TV. Like they had a show on television or whatever, where they were talking about a weapon, like a biological weapon that could kill people under small exposure or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like kill people pretty quickly under small exposure.
Mm.
And then the next thing they said in the TV program was that they decided to produce, like America decided to produce enough to kill everybody on Earth.
Wow.
And you say to yourself, now, what in the world, like most people would say, whoa, I just found out about something. Let me bury this. Let me bury this secret. Let me not explore this anymore. America said, let's produce enough to kill everybody on Earth.
Damn. Savages.
Like just what kind of, because it don't make no sense. Like, why would you?
Yeah.
Why would you? Don't make any sense. But
that had me kind of dumbfounded, to be honest. Just hearing what you just said, I was like, wow.
Yeah, that's the people that's in charge, and that's why we have to. That's why we have to. We have to get back in charge, because we can't have these idiots and these savages in charge.
Absolutely. And this is why, as you know, we have that think tank group that, the idea of that group is to push our agenda via a curriculum, right? That it doesn't necessarily have to be taught in school or in a school, but could be taught within the home, right? We got to get together as people, and we got to start putting our talents into more sensible areas of life. These guys have found a way to mass produce something that can kill everyone on the planet, but meanwhile you're worrying about making it to the NBA, getting signed to a major label. I'm not shitting on those things completely, but come on. We need to counter this stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the brother wrote an article about how there was somebody in South Africa, during apartheid, like one of these white scientists, matter of fact, who was devising he was trying to devise a biological weapon that would that would only affect
black people. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it was something tied to melanin or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, that's what they're doing. That's what they do. That's what you got to realize that if they have enough money to fund a stupid research project like this, they have enough money to fund worse things. Mm-hmm. They have it. And we're kind of, unspoken truth is that we're just giving it to them, because again, you're doing integration instead of nationalism.
Right.
When you're doing that, like, white people don't want nationalism. If you pay attention to the news or whatever, or their news, anytime a country, quote unquote, nationalizes any of their industries, America attacks them.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? Anytime they nationalize their oil or whatever, that is to say that anytime a nation, says, hey, look, we're going to compete with you on a fair terms, America attacks them.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
You see what I'm saying? And the reason being is because, they don't want anybody practicing nationalism, because nationalism is the counterpoint. It's not anything else. Mm-hmm. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But that's all I wanted to say on that one, though.
Okay, so that takes us to finding number 6. You could read that one off.
All right. So within low poverty areas, black-white gaps are smallest in places with low levels of racial bias among whites and high rates of father presence among blacks. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So just to go on this one, the thing I noticed about this one was the emphasis on fathers.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the thing I really want to say about fathers, though, is not what they want to say, because what they want to say is, you got to have like what they're saying is, not just father presence, but like the presence of male role models.
Yeah.
Can have a positive impact on black folk. Like, it don't have to be your dad. Like, it don't matter if your dad's in the home or not.
Right.
If there are men
in the community.
Yeah, exactly. There are men in the community who are, about it or whatever. Mm-hmm. Then it could influence you as a man too, because and that makes a lot of sense, because if all you know about men is what you see on the TV,
or what comes from your single,
exactly, your single moms who don't like your dad for whatever reason,
right.
You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. If that's all you got, then you're not in a good position. But if you see black men in the community who are about it, then that's it. And so that's why I wanted to touch on, the pro-black perspective. The pro-black compendium, where I have, programs that you could do, pretty much in your community, because it's not enough to just say, hey, look, I'm not just to show that, because what they're trying to say is, do like what Obama wants to do, which is, a mentor program, successful, quote unquote successful, integrationist black men,
right.
Showing up, be like, hey, look, I'm serving white folks, so you don't gotta buck dance. You could serve white people too. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't do that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But what I have in the book, the Pro-Black Compendium, is some nationalist programs that you could do, or some sort of economic industry that you could do in the community. Because say what you want about these those black groups that stand on the street corner, and I mean, and not all of them, and I mean, I remember somebody showed up a picture of the dude, like let's say one of these, religious groups, whatever, standing up on the corner, and then they stand next to this Arab guy who's selling nuts. But of course, the Arab guy is making money. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But it's not just to make. I mean, and that's why I said the Pro-Black Compendium. I have things that you could do besides from standing the street. Like, you could make money as well, but selling important things, or doing important things, putting events together and all that kind of stuff, right? But the whole idea is that, or holding tournaments or whatever, right? But the whole thing with that is, that's what we need to start doing, because this at least what we should pick up on is that there is a need for black male role models, and so that should be a call to the black nationalists, to say, hey, look, we need to go outside. We can't be, keyboard warriors or whatever.
Right.
We have to go outside and be role models. Yeah, exactly. Organize and be role models present in the lives of black youth, because black youth are looking for role models.
Yes.
And unfortunately, the people who are out there, sometimes the male role models are going to be like gangbangers in some communities. In some communities, the dude who's like flossing and flaunting is like the gangbanger.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. A brother would tell me that, like a gangbanger would tell you, tell a kid, hey, can you get me a soda pop? And he would give him $100 bill. And of course, when he does that, and then he tells the boy to keep the change from the soda pop, so the kid has made $99+ dollars,
Yeah.
And of course, he doesn't. I don't think he does this too often. But when he does that, it has a mental impression on this little boy. Like, yo, this dude is doing well for himself. I need to associate with him. He's a good role model. So what we need to do as nationalists is, similarly, not necessarily giving no kid no $100. You know what I'm saying? I'm sorry, I'm gonna hold on to my $100. You know what I'm saying? As soon as I get it. But the whole thing is that, as nationalists, you have to be out in the community, interacting with the kids and being being a success in some sort of capacity. So, even if it's selling nuts or whatever, that's better than like, say, being behind a computer screen and ranting to nobody, or being behind your phone, your Twitter fingers and ranting to nobody.
So that takes me back to my college days in the 90s, right?
Mm-hmm.
I remember me and another guy I was cool with at the time. We were walking off a campus, and there was a older man talking to a kid who had to be about 13. Black folks, right? Older black man, young black kid. An older black man was like getting on this kid's case, telling him like, "What? Are you a punk? Are you afraid? What? You afraid to go to jail? Huh?" And the kid was like, "No, what?" And he just kept badgering him about it, like, "You afraid to go to jail and stuff like that? Don't be no punk out here." And we have to counter that kind of shit.
Exactly.
There needs to be the guys out here who are talking to these kids and telling them, man, getting an education is not bad, man. You know, avoid jail at all costs. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I totally get what you're saying. We could be the fathers, even though we may not be biological fathers to these kids out here. We got to get out here and start kind of positively influencing these kids, because we already have a system, as this paper points out in those previous discussions you and I have had and what our podcasts are about. We already have a system that's actively, every day, 24/7 a week, actively plotting your downfall as a black person, right? We also have our own black folks who ain't about nothing out here helping that system carry out its task. So we have to be out here as men in the community talking to these young folks especially. You know, and your book does have a good program in there that people should buy the book, check out the program. Let's see if we can start linking some of these movements in the community together so that we could just completely change, you know, and really influence positively these kids going forward, man.
Yeah, exactly. Because I remember one time I was walking in the neighborhood, I saw this little boy. I mean, I don't know how old he was. He might have been like 8 or something, you know, but he's sagging, you know, and this older man, you know, I guess he's looking like, you know, not, he's like, that's not good. So I said, why don't you say something to the kid? And he's like, it's not my kid, you know, and that right there though is like, you know, and I mean, and troubling is that, you know, on the one hand, you know, I get it. You know what I mean? Like we kind of created a culture where it was like you can't talk to nobody else's kid. You know, even though we came from a culture where you could talk to anybody's kid. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like everybody's kid was your kid, but nowadays it's like I finally got around to watching that Spike Lee movie where I think the dude yelled at this boy's kid and the mother goes off on him. And I mean, that's like something that you would expect these days too, you know?
Yeah.
You know, what can do the right thing, maybe, I don't know. But at the same time, it's like, that's the kind of mentality we got to get rid of, you know, because if you're not watching the kid per se, or if you're not enough to keep the kid from sagging, or to keep the kid from degrading himself, or to keep the kid from being on the corner or whatever, right? Then, you know, ask for help, if you will, you know?
Yeah.
Or not necessarily ask for help, but accept help, you know? Because that's where we are right now, where it's like, you know, and actually, I mean, like you could go back into that feminism thing where it's like, hey, you know, you ain't my boy's father or something, or you don't pay his bills,
right.
Or you don't, but that goes back into this whole economic, you know, trouble. You know, it's like, oh, you ain't paying my bills, so be quiet.
Right.
You know? And it's like, well, you know, white people want that. You know, they want that conversation. They want that economic trouble going on between the black man and the black woman. You know?
Right.
Like, they want that, you know?
Only?
Because, yes.
Sorry to cut you off, but I just have to go back to one thing you said a second ago. If you said you're just getting around to watching Do the Right Thing, that's a little bit of an understatement, right? Just getting around 30 years later, that's an understatement, right? But yeah, no, your point is still well taken. I mean, you know, we have to do better because, you know, ultimately, yeah, I mean, we're playing into the hands of the people who are trying to destroy us. You know what I'm saying?
Although I probably watched it 5 years ago. I don't know, maybe a couple of years ago. But I was just saying, it's like, I mean, it wasn't on my top. You know, it wasn't. You know.
Yeah, but finally getting around. I mean that. That's something. Let's take a station break, and we'll come back to the last finding, number 7, I think it is, right?
Yeah.
Which actually ties into what we were just talking about. Well, let's take a quick station break, and we'll come back.
You are listening to the Bitter Medicine Podcast on KWAZ Radio.
Peace, family. This is Oni, inviting you to listen to the Pro-Black Perspective, where black problems are addressed with black solutions.
Peace Seeker. Malcolm X, John Henry Clark, Joseph Ben Yakinen, Edward Porkchop Davis, and others took notes from Carlos A. Cooks and might not have obtained their nationalistic fervor nor worldview had they not heard Cooks. This is Oni from the Pro-Black Perspective, author of the Pro-Black Compendium and Zuberi and the Maroons of Maa. I scanned 2 out-of-print books valuing $800 new on Carlos A. Cooks, the foremost black nationalist after Garvey, and added Cooks magazines into one ebook that I can send you for your reciprocity. Send some love to cash.me/$ABSONI with the subject Carlos and your email address, and if your love is strong for your people, you'll get a book. If your love is too weak, you'll get a refund, and you should double your love next time. Carlos is the missing link, who was probably the greatest mind in the world from 1940 to 1966, standing over King and Malcolm like a giant over midgets. These are the missing pages of black history from the 1940s to the 1960s. I just need you to believe in your way of reciprocity, and as you give, you will receive. Cash.me/$ABSONI. Show me you value your story.
And we're back. We're about to wrap up this episode of the crossover podcast between the Bitter Medicine podcast and the Pro-Black Perspective, with its host Oni Tase. So now we've reached to number 7 in terms of the findings, which actually I'll let you have the last reading. Can you tell us what finding number 7 is?
Yeah, so the black-white gap is not immutable. Black boys who move to better neighborhoods as children have significantly better outcomes.
So this one made me think about like an old Eddie Murphy joke, where I don't remember the punchline, but the setup was along the lines of him and his mother used to send him and his brother, I guess Charlie Murphy, off to these white folks in the summertime. And I could never understand, why do black folks package up their children and send them to white folks?
I tell you, chill, your guess will be as good as mine, man. Well, that's like the worst thing you can do. You know what I'm saying?
Malcolm X spoke about that. That's like the worst thing you could do. To give your children to your enemy, to educate them and this, that, and the other. So this finding kind of sounded a little bit like that to me, right? You send black kids basically out of the hood, right, and into these integrated, if not primarily white neighborhoods, and they'll do better. So to me, this one came across like a message to black folks. Get your kids around more white people; they'll do better.
Yeah, exactly. That's probably what they was trying to say. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But the thing is that I want to take from this is that brother recently showed a quotation from Shona, from the Shona people, on education. I thought it was pretty interesting, so I wanted to read that one. But in Shona, it's pardon my Shona, right? But it's Simbi Inaroa Ichapisa, right? And what it means is iron is molded when it is still hot, Yeah. So on regard to education, it's like, a child, like what we really should take from this too, what we should take from this in addition is, besides from the fact that white people trying to promote themselves as the best, the best people to grow up around, which is a big yeah, right? But the idea is that, children are are more easily molded, you know, and it's really about the formative years, you know, and we have to start focusing on the formative years more so, you know, more heavily.
Yeah.
Because the formative years can, you know, dictate the outcome, if you will, you know? And so, like, if you are, you know, a father or a mother or whatever, you know, be really, really good to your child. Like, be there for your child during their early years.
Right.
You know, be supportive of them, be encouraging them, and teach them that, you know, and don't do what a lot of our parents did, which was turn us over to white folk, you know, the moment that we began to talk, or the moment we began to walk or whatever, you know? You know, don't do that, you know, but be there in the early years. And I know it's hard and it's impractical and all that, but, you know, and again, that's another thing that we're not talking about in regards to the gender gap, you know? I mean, the wage gap is if black people, see, because this is the thing right here. Black people are getting paid enough for individuals, you know, for an individual, not for a family.
Right.
You get what I'm saying? Black women are being paid enough for an individual. You get what I'm saying? Not for a family. You know, white women, you get to say whatever, right? But white men pay themselves enough for a family. You see what I'm saying? So it's like what you see is that even in the case of like, because the thing is that you as a black family should be there for your kid. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Or you should provide a private education for your kid. You get what I'm saying? But it's difficult if you're only getting enough money for yourself. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But that's the whole thing that white people are trying to do to us. So it's like, you know, the formative years, the childhood years, those are fundamental. Those are of the utmost. You know.
I agree. And another thing I'd like to tack on here. It's something I've noticed for a long time now, and I'm trying to break the cycle myself. I've noticed in the black community, we have no problem. In fact, we kind of promote it, that each generation has to start from scratch, has to start from zero. And it's something... You know, we use these terms, these kind of vague things like, oh, it builds character and this, that, and the other. But white folks don't do that shit. White folks try to give advantages to their kids from jump, right?
Exactly.
We make it so that, you know, I saw a video, I forget what it was for, but it had Van Jones and a bunch of other black so-called celebrities and stuff. And they were talking about when they first experienced racism. And some of them were like 10. And I'm saying to myself, well, where the fuck were your parents? Pardon my language. How is it you reached 10 and 12 and 18 and all kind of stuff before you know, really knew what racism was? And it's because their parents just let them live. And just let things happen by chance, right? So to build on what you were saying, I think we need to actively pursue, you know, getting our kids together, so to speak, and stop having it where our kids just kind of live and encounter these issues at some point. You know, you and I had a conversation some time ago, and you were asking, you know, when, you know, how did I come into consciousness and stuff like that, right?
Oh, yeah.
And I kind of said, like, well, it kind of was always there, right?
Exactly.
But for a lot of black folks, it's not always there. It happens when they become teenagers, you know, 20, 21, and stuff like that. We have to start we have to start dealing with this when our children are much younger. You know.
Yeah, I agree, man.
Yeah.
That's the thing that we don't, you know, we have to be actively forming our children, you know, because that's the most important time, you know. And it's not to say that you can't form an adult, but it's just much easier with a child.
Yes,
you know,
absolutely.
It's just because they're more open to it. You know, they're just more open to it. Because I have a young son. He's like, like 2, right? But the thing with him was that, like, for instance, if I was like, I wanted to turn off the TV, so I'm not necessarily a germaphobe or anything, but let's say I was turning off the TV, like, through my shirt, you know, like, instead of touching it or whatever. And then later on, the same little boy walks up to the TV and, you know, holds his shirt up, you know, to, like, turn off the TV or whatever. You know what I'm saying? But it's like, that's how malleable he is.
Yeah.
You know? And I mean, obviously you want to wait till he's a little older to, you know, introduce certain ideas, but the whole other thing is that that's where they are. You know, whereas, you know, if I do that in front of an adult, they're not going to do the same thing. They're just going to do how they were taught. Yes. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But that's the difference. It's like you got to be there for your kids in the early years. But again, white folk are not making it easy for that. You know what I mean? And so we might, you should also organize. You know, you like I was saying on social media, on my Twitter, you know, at @OnlyTase or whatever, right? I was saying that, you know, because there was a video of this white woman, like, who just beat this black boy, like one of her black students, like, in the classroom, just, like, wailed on his head and then mocked him afterwards, right? And all the other black kids were just laughing. But it was like, that is, you know, and I was like, hey, look, you know, we need to build, you know, we need to talk, we have to be serious about, you know, sending our kids, like, stop sending our kids to this public school system, you know, and one of the sisters, you know, raised up the point that, you know, we can't necessarily afford to do otherwise. But, you know, the reality is that all of us can put something towards at least some kids getting that better education.
True.
You know, if not our kid, somebody's kid.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Because I don't really know the other people, but, like, other groups of people do, like, finance their private schools, even if they don't have any kids in that private school. You know?
Right.
Because they understand that a private school, you know, can have graduates who return favors to the community. You know, like, if a community invests in a private education, the graduates of that private education would return benefits back to that community.
Right.
You get what I'm saying? Because they might even, like, be what you call alumni and help finance that school for when their grandchildren are coming up. You know what I'm saying? It's a community investment.
Right.
But because we don't believe in that, you know, we just keep sending our kids to the public school system. And again, they are malleable. You know what I mean? They are, you know, they're moldable. They're all that. So it's like we're setting ourselves up for, you know, that kind of failure, if you will. You know?
Yeah. So, I mean, overall, what did the study say to you overall?
Well, like I said, you know, it really goes into the whole, you know, race over class.
Yep.
You know, race over class, and just this idea that, you know, we need to start practicing nationalism because, you know, socialism is not going to work. That we have to develop for ourselves. You know, that we have to develop for ourselves. It's not going to be it's not going to be a worthwhile solution. You know, we have to do for ourselves because, like you pointed out, you know, 200-something years is too long to catch up with the current white boys.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? It's too long to catch up with them. You know, I don't have 200 years.
No.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, by the looks of it, we don't even know if there's going to be black people in 200 years.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's not in America. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Unless we do something to preserve ourselves, and that's what it's really about. To preserve ourselves.
Well.
Yeah.
Guys, you heard it here today. This is our breakdown of the recent New York Times article on race and economics, and what it boils down to is you have to be about race first, and you have to organize, or else you will be decimated, right? Like you just said, only we don't have 228 years to catch up to anyone, to catch up to anyone today, right? So we have to do better as a people. This study just told us what we pretty much already know, those of us who are in the know. Hopefully those who weren't in the know prior will have learned something in today's broadcast. But it's been great. Can you tell the people where they can find you and your podcast and your books?
Well, I'm on Twitter. I'm on Tumblr. Both names are Onitaset, ONITASET. I have a website called AfricanBloodSiblings.wordpress.com. I have two print books, which is the Pro-Black Perspective. The Pro-Black Compendium and Zuberi and the Maroons of Maa. I also have an ebook called the Carlos A. Cooks Reader, the really good one, and I have the podcast, like you said, the sister show, the Pro-Black Perspective, and you can catch that on Mixcloud and on YouTube, and that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Okay, and I will have all of that information down in the description box. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Until next time, this has been the Bitter Medicine Podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Bitter Medicine Podcast with your host, Koku. If you like what you just heard, we hope you pass along our web address, bittermedicineblogs.com, to your friends and colleagues, and share our show to all your social media. Be sure to check out our archive section on our website for previous podcasts. This has been a KWAZ radio production. Join us next time for another session of the Bitter Medicine Podcast. Follow us on Facebook at Bitter Medicine Show, Twitter, Bitter Meds, Tumblr, Bitter Meds, Instagram, Bitter Medicine.